From the title alone, I imagine a lot of you are already thinking there is no such thing as a good jump scare. I hope that I can change this thought process with a movie that has not one, but two good jump scares. They both come from the classic Halloween. Some of you might not even remember that the original Halloween had jump scares, since the movie is so heavy on suspense. Let's go over them. The first happens right after Loomis scares some kids away from the Myers house, knowing that Myers very well could be in this house. Establishing that danger is close to this area, the audience at this point has seen the threat firsthand. At the moment, we have had a decent amount of time to get to know Loomis, to get attached to this character. He's our safety blanket. He knows who Myers is, and might be the only one that can stop it. If he goes, so do the chances of catching this monster. And then suddenly, he's touched from behind. But no loud noise comes with this sudden touch. For a brief moment, we might think this is it, Myers has him. But it's just the sheriff. Phew. We also see Loomis get a little startled, showing once again just how scared of Myers he is. Which also expresses to the audience that we should be petrified as well. So then, a good jump scare is one that doesn't need a loud noise to throw you off?
No, not exactly.
Yes and no. Let's look at the other one. Once Loomis catches his breath, they explore the Myers house to see if he has come home. And during this, a part of the house breaks apart and shatters a bit of the window. Now some might immediately think, this isn't a good jump scare. They just took me off guard by pure reaction. And yes, it might have startled a few folks, but what makes this jump scare good is it has a purpose. It isn't random. After the window is shattered, we see Loomis pull out his gun. While this scare might catch some audience members, it was absolutely for Loomis. It was set here to establish his weapon, so when he pulls it out in the final act, audience members don't scoff at the idea of Loomis, a doctor, having this weapon. After this bit, we have Loomis once again going over how pure evil Myers is to further push the point as to why Loomis thinks it's important to have this weapon. For a quick recap, when it comes to movies, if the jump scare has a purpose beyond Aunt Sharon is a little paranoid of this place, so she starts checking drawers and a cup falls, startling her, I believe that it's a good jump scare. There's a reason for Loomis to be afraid, and it doesn't take a cheap shot at the audience with just a loud noise to spook them. And when there is a loud noise, it's just as much for the characters as it is for the audience. Now that we've talked about good jump scares regarding movies, let's talk about the video game side of things. For the video game side of things, I've decided to talk about what many consider the king of jump scares, Five Nights at Freddy's. For the most part, this entire franchise has what I consider good jump scares, except for 2 of the installments. It's way too easy to take jabs at Security Breach, and everybody's doing it. So for the bad examples of jump scares, I'll be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 3. For those that know the game, I imagine you are already thinking, oh, it's the Springtrap one. The one where he just sort of slides into frame. Wrong! I am actually talking about the Phantoms. When it comes to video games, jump scares should be the result of a few things. Like movies, one of the things it should accomplish is pushing the plot, the beginning of establishing a villain, or unlike movies, it should be a punishment for something the player did wrong. In most of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, you can actually predict exactly when you're going to get jump scared once you understand the game. This doesn't make the jump scare bad, it just means you made a mistake. These jump scares aren't random, it's your fault. If you'd like more explanation of this, I have an entire video on the first one and why it handles its scares so brilliantly well. Links in the description. On this note, let's talk about what FNAF 3 handles amazingly well, that being Springtrap's jump scares. The actual jump scare is underwhelming, but it's why the player got jump scared is what makes it good. Because contrary to popular belief, the scare factor of FNAF doesn't come from the jump scare, it comes from the tension, the build-up, the atmosphere. And in FNAF 3's case, this is extremely strong. FNAF 3 is basically a glorified game of Where's Waldo. The objective is to keep this guy away from your office. You use this little sound to lure him away. The problem being the sound only works when you use it on a room right next to where Springtrap is, and the game purposely has you looking at cameras that make flip phone cameras look like 1080p. The rooms are dark and Springtrap also hides himself very well on some of these cameras. It's easier to find him on the cameras further away from you, but but once he gets closer, you need the eye of an eagle to spot him. The scare factor of this game comes from not knowing where Springtrap is. If you manage to lose him, and if you don't find him fast enough, well, you get the idea. There's build up here. There's a reason you got jump scared. The jump scares have always been more of a relief rather than an actual terrifying experience. The Phantoms, on the other hand, while initially they start this way, it gets ridiculous in the harder nights. In the initial nights, like Springtrap, to avoid them, you simply have to know they are there. If you see this little bugger on your camera, you simply have to quickly swap to the next camera. It's easy enough on these initial nights. The game gives you ample time to respond to these. I would qualify them as good jump scares when they are reactable, but in the later nights, you get barely any time to react to these, even if you do see them. It can get incredibly cheap when you're frantically searching every corner for Springtrap, but you didn't take this little guy hiding right here and don't react within a second. The player receives a scare for no good reason. In contrast to Springtrap's actual jump scare though, the jump scares from the Phantoms are much more in your face, much more likely to get a reaction out of you, I suppose, so that's something. Foxy specifically has had me jump out of my seat quite a bit. My girlfriend can attest to this. But his is actually avoidable. If he's in your office, you can keep him in the corner of your eye and you won't be jump scared. Same with Freddy. If you see him outside of your window, just don't look at him for too long. Even in the later nights, these two are pretty avoidable. The same can't be said for these guys though. Jump scares can be executed well. I know there's a heavy stigma on them, but I hope I was able to have some of you think about what you may have deemed as just a cheap shot in the past as something a little more. But of course, that doesn't mean all jump scares are good. It's just like anything else, suspense can be done really well, or it can be done really shoddy. For those that are interested, we have St. Patrick's merch going on. There will be links in the description if you would like to go ahead and take a look. Thank you all so much for your time. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and comment what you would like to see next. Take care, everyone.